Amid the snow-covered slopes of the eastern French Alps stood a charming three-story wooden chalet, once filled with the laughter of a happy family. But one April morning, its door quietly shut, and from that moment on, no one inside was ever seen again. That very morning, on April 12th, 2003, in the serene town of Le Grand Bornand in eastern France, the surrounding landscape was peaceful and still. 14-year-old Savoy Mario was sitting in a taxi, gazing out the window at the scenic countryside, excited at the thought of reuniting with his mother. He had been looking forward to this trip for weeks. Ever since his parents' divorce, his mother had remarried and moved to Grand Bornand, while he stayed with his father. For the Easter holiday, his mother and stepfather had invited him to visit, promising family time and ski trips. That morning, Savoy woke up early, flew into Lyon, and continued by taxi to Grand Bornand. He was especially fond of his stepfather. Their bond was more like father and son. His mother and stepfather had 3 children together, and even though he was a half-brother, Savoy was always seen as the eldest sibling in the family. But as soon as he arrived, something immediately felt off. Standing in front of the familiar 3-story chalet, Savoy rang the doorbell with his luggage in hand. Strangely, no one answered. He knocked again and again, still nothing. His mother and stepfather had made all the arrangements. They'd booked his flight, arranged the taxi. They knew exactly when he was arriving. By all logic, someone should have been home to greet him. He walked around the house only to find that all the windows were tightly shut. There was no way to get in. He tried calling the landline inside the house. The phone rang, but no one picked up. He then tried calling his mother and stepfather's cell phones. Again, no response. He noticed that his stepfather's car was not parked outside and assumed perhaps the family had stepped out unexpectedly for some quick errand. Still, by 2 p.m., Savoy had already been waiting outside the house for 4 hours, and there was still no sign of anyone returning. During that time, he called his grandmother and aunt to ask if they knew where his mother might be, but neither of them had any idea. Feeling hungry, Savoy finally took out a pen and paper from his backpack, scribbled a quick note letting his mother know he had arrived, and taped it to the front door. Then he walked over to a nearby restaurant for something to eat. By chance, that very restaurant was a place his mother and stepfather often visited on weekends, and its owner happened to be a close family friend. During previous holiday visits to the chalet, Savoy had dined there several times, so he was not only familiar with the place, but also immediately recognized by the owner. Upon learning that Savoy was alone and no one seemed to be home, the owner reassured him, telling him to wait there. If the family returned, the restaurant had a clear view of the chalet, and he could simply walk back over. By the time night had fully fallen and there was still no sign of life from the chalet, Savoy began to feel uneasy and anxious. Seeing the boy pacing restlessly, the restaurant owner decided to go check things out himself. He walked to the wooden house and tried each door and window one by one until he discovered that a small back door had been left unlocked. Carefully, he pushed the door open and stepped inside. Everything was spotless, the furniture neatly arranged, the floors gleaming as if they had just been scrubbed. From what he knew about the family, the 3 children usually left the house in a bit of a mess whenever they were home, so the unusually pristine condition of the place struck him as strange. Though a sense of unease began creeping in, he tried to reassure himself that maybe the family had just stepped out unexpectedly. In the end, he decided to take Savoy back to his own home and let him spend the night there. The next morning, the situation remained unchanged. With no sign of Savoy's mother or stepfather, the boy called his grandmother to explain what had happened. Alarmed by the story, she immediately notified the police. Officers arrived promptly at the chalet and began their inspection. That's when they discovered something truly disturbing. The entire 5-member family had mysteriously vanished. The missing included 41-year-old Xavier Flastif, his 36-year-old wife Graciela Ortolano, and their 3 children, 10-year-old daughter Sarah, 9-year-old Letitia, and 7-year-old Gregory. At first, police suspected that the family might have gone on a trip, especially since their car was missing. Given it was Easter weekend, many families in the area took vacations around that time. Maybe they had simply forgotten that Savoy was supposed to visit. But Savoy strongly disagreed with that idea. He insisted that his mother and stepfather had known for weeks about his trip and couldn't have left town. Besides, both their cell phones were unreachable, which was deeply unusual. Despite Savoy's reasoning, the police remained cautious. Technically, the family had been out of contact for less than 48 hours. They suggested that, at the latest, everyone would return by Monday, when the children were due back at school. After recording the initial report, they tried to reassure Savoy not to worry and promised to follow up if anything unusual came to light. In the meantime, Savoy stayed with his grandmother who lived nearby. But just as Savoy had feared, by Monday morning, there was still no change. His grandmother returned to the chalet and, seeing that the house was still empty, called the police again. This time, the officers began to sense that something was seriously wrong. They recalled that Xavier was known for his aggressive driving, even on dangerous mountain roads. With that in mind, they speculated that the family might have been involved in an accident while traveling. Acting on that theory, police launched a full-scale search along every road in the Grand Bornand Valley. But after an entire day of scouring the area, they found no sign of a crash, no wreckage, no tire marks, no evidence of an accident. Realizing the situation was more complex than they had anticipated, authorities decided it was time to conduct a full forensic search of the chalet. Notably, the house was a spacious 3,230 square feet, spread across 3 stories with an underground garage, making it one of the largest and most fully equipped homes in the area. At first glance, everything inside seemed perfectly normal. But as police began examining each part of the property, they started to notice a number of unusual details. First were the kitchen and bedrooms. The fridge was fully stocked with food, and a pot of recently reheated food was still sitting on the stove, unwashed, clear signs that the family had been living there just before they vanished. Of the 2 laptops in the house, one was still in sleep mode. Yet oddly, in the bedrooms of the second daughter and youngest son, not only were the blankets missing, but even the bed sheets had been stripped away. Meanwhile, the search for the family's car was also ongoing. Over the next several days, officers expanded their efforts, even checking nearby lakes throughout the Bornand Valley with nets, but found nothing. After the initial walkthrough of the chalet, police did not seal off the scene, which raised concerns among locals who saw people casually entering and exiting the property and speaking loudly in the area. Suspicion and curiosity grew, drawing more people to the house. Taking advantage of the police absence, some individuals broke in through a window. When police returned for a second inspection, they were stunned by what they saw. Many household items had gone missing, the food in the fridge had been partially taken, and most troubling of all, the 2 laptops had disappeared. During their first search, the police had only done a preliminary sweep and hadn't yet examined the laptop's contents, which may have contained crucial evidence. Now, both machines were gone. Since there were no surveillance cameras around the house, it was impossible to determine who had taken them. Soon afterward, the crime scene showed clear signs of being compromised. It was evident that several unauthorized people had entered. The once immaculate floors were now covered in unfamiliar shoe prints, giving the appearance of a property that had been thoroughly tampered with. Realizing the scene had been contaminated, the police moved quickly to seal all doors and windows, placing warning tape around the exterior to prevent further intrusions. A few more days passed. On the 5th day since the Xavier family went missing, police conducted a third search of the chalet. This time, they uncovered even more disturbing evidence. Specifically, a spent bullet casing was found inside the house, along with jagged marks on the wooden floor, suggesting there had been a violent struggle. Just days later, during a 4th inspection, the situation escalated again. Investigators discovered traces of blood lodged in the cracks between floorboards. In the bedroom of the second daughter, they also found a small baby tooth, raising the chilling possibility that the girl had been attacked in that very room. Additionally, officers noticed large patches of wallpaper had been torn from the walls near the staircase, and some rugs showed signs of being cut. These findings led investigators to believe that the perpetrator had attempted to clean the crime scene but was unsuccessful, forcing them to remove blood-stained or incriminating objects from the house altogether. To investigate more thoroughly, police used luminol testing, and the results were shocking. Almost the entire house lit up with fluorescent reactions. especially concentrated in the bedrooms and along the staircase. This only strengthened suspicions that a serious crime had occurred involving the Xavier family. Authorities immediately assembled a special task force and mobilized their full investigative resources. Upon comparing DNA test results, investigators determined that Xavier's blood was primarily found in the living room, while Graziella's was spread along the staircase, suggesting they had been attacked in separate locations. Even more disturbing was the blood of Sarah, the eldest daughter, which was discovered on the living room table, the windowsill, and the sofa, evidence that she had tried to fight back and escape. Extending their forensic analysis, investigators also found Letitia's blood in her bedroom. The traces indicated she had initially hidden under her desk, then climbed onto the bed, but ultimately collapsed onto the floor. As for Gregory, the youngest child, his blood was found in the kitchen area. In addition to the DNA from all 5 family members, police discovered something even more significant: the presence of a 6th DNA profile belonging to an unknown male, raising the possibility of another individual's involvement, or even an accomplice. More disturbingly, police noted that the entire interior of the house had been carefully washed with clean water, likely over an extended period. This suggested the killer may have returned to the scene multiple times to scrub away evidence. However, despite the cleanup effort, modern forensic techniques revealed critical clues. Beyond the use of a firearm, the perpetrator likely used other weapons and acted with an unimaginable level of brutality. Because of this, investigators expanded their approach by speaking with neighbors in the area. Surprisingly, the Xavier family was not well liked. Despite their wealth, the large house, the luxury cars, and even a yacht, they had very little interaction with people in the neighborhood. Their cold demeanor and distant attitude led many locals to keep their distance and avoid making conversation. But behind this detached image described by neighbors, police records revealed another side to the family. Xavier, the head of the household, was a sharp, articulate businessman who had founded 2 successful real estate companies. His wife, Graziella, was also business savvy and worked alongside her husband to manage their enterprises. Thanks to their seamless partnership, the couple quickly rose to become one of the wealthiest families in the region. In fact, beyond the wooden chalet where they currently lived, they also owned several other properties, which they rented out to tourists, bringing in significant income each year. This led investigators to consider a potential motive. Someone may have targeted the family out of envy over their wealth and success. Interestingly, about 5 years earlier, Xavier's real estate company had launched a new development project in northern France, an area known for its picturesque landscapes. The plan was to build and sell vacation homes there, and in a short time, the project attracted widespread attention. However, when the project began to stall, a wave of customer dissatisfaction quickly spread. Many grew frustrated because their deposits were not refunded on time. What started as a trickle of complaints soon escalated. People began showing up at Xavier's house demanding answers. Some left in silence, but in their eyes was a clear determination to reclaim their lost money. At the same time, police uncovered that Xavier had also had conflicts with several construction workers. He was frequently late in paying wages, which led to growing resentment and, on occasion, even physical altercations at the work site. Given their possible motives for revenge, these workers were quickly added to the list of potential suspects. In addition, Xavier's real estate company had just begun preparing for a major new development, a bold plan to build 150 villas in Grand Bornand, a well-known mountain resort area. The scale of the project thrust him into the local business spotlight, but it also stirred discomfort among competitors who quietly kept an eye on him. As a result, the list of people with grievances against the Xavier family continued to grow, making it difficult for police to narrow down the suspect pool. They turned to Xavier's parents for insight, but the couple simply described Xavier and Graziella as energetic, well-connected individuals with strong personalities. Due to their wide network of business contacts, the parents admitted they had no idea whether the couple had experienced any serious disputes with anyone in particular. For their part, the elderly couple had never interfered in their son's business affairs. Whenever they visited, their focus was on spending time with the grandchildren. They rarely asked about work. Only once, during a family gathering, did they overhear Xavier mention a new real estate project, along with rumors being spread by certain colleagues who had begun speaking ill of him. That detail raised their suspicion. Perhaps those who had slandered Xavier were somehow connected to the crime. Acting on that lead, police began questioning hundreds of former colleagues who had disagreements with him. Yet after days of interrogation, they were still unable to identify anyone who stood out as a clear suspect. Just as the investigation seemed to be reaching a dead end, a breakthrough came from an unexpected moment. While conducting another search of the wooden chalet, one detective stepped out onto the second-floor balcony and noticed a man in the distance using binoculars to watch the house. Quietly, the officer left the property and approached the individual. As soon as the man realized the police were near, he appeared visibly shaken and nervous. The man identified himself as David Hotyat, a 31-year-old who lived nearby. He claimed that he had simply grown curious after seeing police activity around the house and had used binoculars out of interest, wanting to see what was going on inside. When asked whether he had seen or interacted with the Xavier family before the incident, Hotyat stated that around 6:30 p.m., the evening prior to the family's disappearance, Xavier had stopped by his home asking for help. Xavier had planned to host a group of out-of-town guests at his chalet, but something had come up unexpectedly. He asked Hotyat to greet the guests on his behalf in case they arrived while he was away. After agreeing to help, Hotyat was given a key and temporarily put in charge of watching over the house while Xavier was away. Still, investigators were skeptical of his story. After all, Hotyat and Xavier were not close friends, nor did they have a deep personal relationship. The fact that Xavier would entrust the keys to his home to someone he barely knew raised serious questions. To verify his account, police decided to track down the tourists who had rented the chalet that day. The guests confirmed that Hotyat had indeed been the one to greet them. However, they said they had previously arranged the visit with Xavier himself, who had promised to meet them in person. His absence, and the sudden handoff to someone else, took them by surprise, especially since they had received no prior notice about any changes. Because no one had informed them of any updates, they called Xavier at 7:45 p.m. that evening. When no one picked up, they reluctantly accepted the unexpected change of plans. In the following days, Hotyat took over as their main point of contact. He even claimed that he was now the new owner of the chalet, adding that Xavier likely wouldn't be returning anytime soon. During their stay, they described Hotyat as friendly and approachable. He often dropped by to chat whenever he had free time. Through those casual conversations, they learned that he and his family had moved to Grand Bornand 2 years earlier, and he was now hoping to settle down and build a life there long-term. Shortly afterward, news of the murder case began spreading across the town, drawing media attention. Journalists from across the country swarmed Grand Bornand, eager for any new developments in the investigation. Among those interviewed was Hotyat himself, who quickly became a focus of public interest. He spoke eagerly to reporters, offering theories and commentary about the case, going so far as to openly criticize the Xavier family in front of the cameras, as if he were personally involved in the investigation. Just as rumors and speculation were swirling through the media, a Paris-based newspaper published a shocking update. Police had discovered DNA from an unidentified male at the crime scene, an internal detail that was supposed to remain completely confidential. This unexpected leak put the entire investigative team on the defensive. If the suspect was still nearby and learned that evidence had been uncovered, he might flee at any moment. With no time to lose, police were forced to accelerate the manhunt before the trail went cold. As investigators raced against the clock, a major discovery changed the course of the case. Near Geneva Airport, about 131,233 feet from the crime scene, they found Xavier's car. Upon closer inspection, they saw that the doors were locked and the interior was unnaturally clean. In the back seat and the trunk, they found 2 suitcases. Inside each one were small blood stains. Lab tests confirmed the blood belonged to members of the Xavier family. Faced with mounting evidence, investigators turned their attention to those closest to Xavier. They asked Hotyat to provide a DNA sample, but he refused, citing privacy concerns. In response, police widened the collection effort to include mandatory DNA sampling from all nearby residents, leaving Hotyat with no choice but to comply like everyone else. Not long after the tourists vacated the chalet, something unexpected happened. Hotyat immediately moved in with his girlfriend. He continued to speak to the media, harshly criticizing the Xavier family with increasing intensity, as if he were the victim. When police asked why he had moved into Xavier's home, Hotyat claimed it was a property he had legally purchased from the family. According to his explanation, he had previously chosen not to live there because he wanted to rent it out to tourists for income. That's why, he said, he let Xavier keep the keys, since Xavier was responsible for booking guests. But now that the family was gone, Hotyat felt he had every right to move in. However, when police compared this version of events to his earlier statements, they quickly found discrepancies. If the chalet had truly been Hotyat's legal property, he could have simply said so during his first interview. But in his previous statements, there was no mention of ownership at all. This contradiction strongly suggested that Hotyat was deliberately hiding the truth. Soon after, Hotyat and his girlfriend Alexandra Lefebvre appeared on a television program where both of them openly criticized Xavier. On live TV, they insulted the victim repeatedly, calling him a dishonest businessman who exploited others to enrich himself. Following her boyfriend's lead, Lefebvre tearfully claimed she had once worked as a cleaner in Xavier's house for a week, but quit because she couldn't stand how he treated workers like tools. She recounted one incident where, after scrubbing the entire kitchen, Xavier walked in, noticed a small water spot, and ordered her to mop the entire floor again. She said she silently returned to the corner, wrung out her mop, and held back tears with a sigh. But they didn't stop there. The couple went on to accuse the Xavier family of being involved in illegal activities. They claimed Xavier had trafficked contraband, had ties to a criminal gang, and had to flee the house in the middle of the night to avoid getting caught. They even alleged that Xavier's father was living in Belgium, running 12 bars used as fronts for his son's criminal operations. These baseless accusations infuriated Xavier's family. After the program aired, his parents immediately contacted the police, stating they had never heard of Hotyat or Lefebvre, and that Xavier had never mentioned them either. They also made it clear they had never been to Belgium and didn't own any bars there. As far as they were concerned, everything said in the broadcast was pure fabrication. At that very moment, the police were also watching the show. During the interview, Hotyat led reporters to the chalet once owned by the Xavier family and began describing its interior in great detail. He pointed out the massive refrigerator built into the kitchen wall, a gleaming Italian-style gas stove, and a long dining table that could seat up to 20 people. He described the living room as having a dark leather sofa facing a large flat-screen TV, and noted the staircase was wide enough for 3 people to walk side by side comfortably. His vivid and precise descriptions caught the attention of investigators. It became clear that Hotyat harbored deep envy toward the Xavier family, and may have been observing them closely for some time. The way he knew the layout and furnishings so intimately suggested a level of familiarity far beyond that of a casual neighbor. Prompted by mounting suspicions, police began a full background investigation into David Hotyat. He was born in Arras, northern France, had previously served in the military, and was passionate about sports. After leaving the army, he moved with his girlfriend to Grand Bornand, where he worked as a welder in a local factory, while Lefebvre took on various hourly jobs. When authorities began wiretapping the couple's phones, they quickly uncovered troubling signs. Gradually, investigators realized the couple was far more dangerous than their media-friendly appearance suggested, especially after one intercepted phone call revealed explosive details. In that call, they casually referenced the murder of the Xavier family and explicitly mentioned 2 other individuals present at the crime scene, Stéphane Haremza and Isabelle Haremza, another couple living in the same town and close friends of Hotyat and Lefebvre. Around the same time, DNA results came back, officially confirming that Hotyat's genetic material was a perfect match to the unidentified male DNA found at the crime scene. Based on this evidence, 5 months after the massacre, a special task force of 80 officers launched a coordinated operation to arrest Hotyat and his suspected accomplices. When police entered the factory where Hotyat worked, he was in the middle of his shift. Upon seeing the arrest warrant, he did not resist. He simply bowed his head in silence and extended his hands to be cuffed. At the same time, his girlfriend Lefebvre and the Haremza couple were also arrested at separate locations. Immediately following the arrests, police conducted searches of each suspect's residence. At Hotyat's home, they recovered 156 CDs that had belonged to Xavier, 2 cell phones, a child's pair of skis, a camera, and 2 laptops that had previously been reported missing. The next step was interrogation, and during questioning, Hotyat remained calm, confessed to the entire crime, and recounted the murder in detail. According to Hotyat's testimony, when he and Lefebvre first moved to Grand Bornand, Xavier was the first person they met. Xavier owned several chalets in the area and had promised to rent them one at a discounted rate, but he broke that promise multiple times. He also said he would help Hotyat find a good job, which turned out to be a grueling, labor-intensive position instead. These disappointments fueled growing resentment in Hotyat, which slowly built into deep-seated anger and hatred. After bottling up these frustrations for months, Hotyat decided to confront Xavier directly. Before leaving home, he took a gun that he had previously stolen from Lefebvre's grandfather. At exactly 5:30 p.m., he arrived at Xavier's house. At the time, only the 3 children were home. Seeing a stranger at the door, the kids immediately called their parents, and not long after, Xavier and Graziella returned. As soon as he saw them, Hotyat began demanding answers, accusing them of making promises they didn't keep, offering a rental that never materialized, and suggesting a job that was far too difficult. Hearing this, the couple grew angry and told him to leave the house and stop raising his voice. Xavier stepped forward and pushed Hotyat, and the confrontation quickly escalated into a physical altercation. As the struggle escalated, the 2 men accidentally knocked over a shelving unit, which fell directly onto Xavier's second daughter, Letitia. The impact enraged Xavier even more. He lunged at Hotyat and began hitting him. His wife, Graziella, joined the fight, and the situation quickly turned into chaos. Overpowered and panicking, Hotyat pulled out the gun and fired a shot straight into Xavier's chest. Realizing he had crossed the point of no return, Hotyat made the devastating decision to eliminate all witnesses. He turned the gun on Sarah, Gregory, and Graziella. Letitia tried to run, but she too was struck and killed by one of his bullets. After killing all 5 victims, he grabbed bedsheets and blankets from inside the house and wrapped their bodies. He then loaded them into Xavier's car. Just as he was about to leave, a pizza delivery driver unexpectedly showed up at the front door. Hotyat quickly ducked into the vehicle, watching through the window as the delivery person received no answer and walked around the house before heading off. However, when the driver lingered in the area, seemingly curious, Hotyat was forced to step out of the car. Pretending to be calm, he told the delivery man that he had the wrong address. Fortunately, the driver didn't question him further and soon left the scene. Once certain the area was clear, around 8 p.m., Hotyat drove to King Mountain, located roughly 8.0 miles from the crime scene. There, he set fire to the bodies and other physical evidence in an effort to destroy all traces. He remained at the site for 3 hours to ensure the fire consumed everything before leaving. He then drove the vehicle near Geneva Airport, staging the scene to make it look like the Xavier family had gone on vacation. Based on his confession, police searched the area around King Mountain and indeed found evidence at a remote site, including scorched clothing fragments, charred wooden planks, and an empty gasoline canister. Forensic tests confirmed these remains belonged to the Xavier family. Looking at the map, it became clear that the chalet where the murders occurred, King Mountain and Geneva Airport, were located in 3 completely different directions, with significant distances between them. This indicated that Hotyat had premeditated the crime, carefully selecting the disposal site and the fake drop-off point for the car. Burning 5 bodies at once would have required a large quantity of dry wood, something he had likely prepared in advance. Even so, throughout his entire confession, Hotyat insisted the act was not premeditated. He never mentioned any accomplices and claimed full responsibility. He added that after the murders, he returned to the chalet to clean up the crime scene. When he noticed police arriving, he fled out of fear of being caught. Later that night, taking advantage of the area being unguarded, he snuck back into the house and stole the 2 laptops, key pieces of evidence that had originally been recorded as missing. However, the other 3 suspects told a completely different story. According to them, Hotyat had started planning the murders 3 months before they took place. One evening while watching TV, he saw a report about a restaurant employee who murdered his boss and took over his business. That story, they said, planted the idea in his mind to carry out a similar plan. From that point on, Hotyat's envy of the Xavier family's wealth grew stronger. He became obsessed with the idea that if he could eliminate them, he could easily take their place, move into the chalet, and live a dream life of luxury. He shared this delusional plan with Lefebvre and later involved the Haremza couple. After several discussions, all 4 eventually agreed to carry out the plan on April 11th. However, when questioned about who actually committed the murders, the testimonies of the other 3 did not align. Each one denied participating in the killings and placed full responsibility on Hotyat. Stéphane Haremza claimed that he had initially planned to strangle the entire family using rope, but hesitated when he arrived at the scene and ultimately backed out. He insisted that his only involvement was helping clean the crime scene and taking CDs, cell phones, and other belongings after Hotyat had already committed the murders. As for the evidence, fearing they would be caught if they kept it at their own homes, the group agreed to store everything at Hotyat's residence. Lefebvre also testified that she simply followed her boyfriend's instructions, helping hide the murder weapon, but not participating in any of the actual violence. She said she was terrified and felt completely powerless in the situation. Even though all 3 denied taking part in the killings, their statements, combined with collected evidence, proved they were complicit in the crime. Moreover, the investigation uncovered yet another shocking detail. Hotyat's biological brother, Michael Hotyat, was also involved. After 3 years of investigation, the case was finally brought to trial at the Assize Court of Haute-Savoie. At the end of the trial, the court issued its ruling. David Hotyat was convicted of premeditated murder and sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum of 22 years before eligibility for parole. Stéphane Haremza received a 15-year prison sentence. Alexandra Lefebvre was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Isabelle Haremza received a 7-year sentence. Michael Hotyat was sentenced to 1 year, suspended. Of the 5, only David Hotyat appealed the verdict. However, the appeals court upheld the original sentences in full. Beyond the trial, additional investigations revealed that Hotyat had previously attempted to set fire to a chalet under construction by the Xavier family. He was also linked to several burglaries and break-ins in the Grand Bourgnand area around the time of the murders. According to a psychological report compiled by authorities, a forensic psychologist described Hotyat as someone prone to deep insecurity and guided by extreme pragmatism. These negative traits, the expert explained, caused him to become chronically resentful, jealous of others' success, and filled with long-term hatred, ultimately forming a dangerous and violent personality. And so, what began as a peaceful resort town tucked away in the mountains of France became the setting for a nightmare that shook the entire nation. The killer was eventually brought to justice, and the law prevailed. But the loss of life, family bonds, and cherished memories is something that can never truly be restored. What are your thoughts on this case? Let us know in the comments below. If you found this video compelling, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss our next true crime story.